Today's topic is how to get enough protein on a vegan diet to build enough muscle to be a pro bodybuilder if one chooses. I have a guest today, and he is the perfect person to ask these questions. His name is Geoff Palmer. He is a 60-year-old, which he doesn't look like at all, a 38-year vegan, natural bodybuilding and natural physique champion. He's the owner of Clean Machine, a vegan supplement company that has non-GMO ingredients, whose products have won numerous awards. And Geoff even created the first natural vegan bodybuilding competition. So I have links to all his products and this competition, and I checked on it and to see what these bodybuilders look like, and they're super strong. So when people say vegans are weak, no way, you got to check out this video. So yes, my first question for you, Geoff, is, okay, so is this true or false? Do we need more protein, and how much?
That's a good question. More is relative, obviously. So let's just start with what the research is saying. Interesting research that shows up to about 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight is about the maximum effective amount for helping build muscle. Less than that, if you're interested in building muscle and trying to put on actual size and strength, that can be insufficient for those goals. So getting the right amount is good. Getting excess, not so good, unless you're over 50. So interestingly, in studies, both men and women over 50 actually tend to need more protein, which may be counterintuitive because, they may be losing muscle or may be smaller in stature or not as active, but they found that it actually improves the health without increasing any risk for health conditions by increasing muscle. So as you age, you'll tend to need a little bit more, and based on your activity level. Now, if you're just a normally active person taking walks with the dog and stuff like that, no, you don't need that 1.6 grams per kilogram. That's for maximum amount for athletes.
So since we're in the United States and we don't use kilograms, I think it's
right.
Right, wasn't it? You take it, divide by 2.2 or something like that. So if somebody
2.2. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for round, I'm almost 100 pounds. I'm really short. Mm-hmm. So for me, what would be the math for that?
Okay, yeah, I usually do this on a calculator. So you're kind of stumping. Like I'll use myself because I know that off the top of my head. So I weigh between, depending on my time of the year, 180 to 190 pounds. And so for me, that equates to about 120 grams of protein. So for me, it's real easy. Now that I've done that calculation, I know what my weight to my needs are for muscle to maintain the muscle that I have is about 30 grams of protein in 4 meals a day. So I'll have my breakfast, lunch, and dinner and one other meal either at the end of the day or somewhere in the middle in between those meals to get my 30 grams of protein. And it's so easy to do. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich on a good whole wheat, whole grain bread can get you 30 grams of protein. A cup of hummus and, some crackers, that can be 30 grams of protein. It's really not that hard. A stir fry with tofu, 30 grams of protein, easy. Beans and rice and greens, 30 grams. It's so easy to get that. It's not like, oh, I got to figure out my macros and it's really hard to, where do you get all your protein from? I'm like, I just eat like a bowl of oatmeal, a good sized bowl of oatmeal. You add some nuts to it and some pumpkin seeds or something like that. You can get 30 grams of protein in that. That's just a bowl of oatmeal for breakfast. I'm 5'9", and
17 inches, right? 17-inch bicep.
17-inch arms. That's right. At 60. That's another thing. People say that, oh, wait a minute, sarcopenia, right? Age-related muscle loss is bunk. Age-related muscle loss isn't age-related at all. It's nutrition, it's exercise related. Yes, is there a gradual reduction in muscle size? Yeah, because you probably don't need it as much. But as long as you stay active and as long as you're giving your body the nutrients it needs, you can maintain, as much size and strength pretty much. Like I turned 60 this month, I'm benching 445. So
Wow.
there's no reason. It's more than I was benching when I was 30. So there's no
when did you start?
decline there.
Yeah. When did you start bodybuilding? How old were you?
I actually took the stage when I'm bodybuilding when I was 50.
Wow. But okay, so
Yeah.
but when did you start lifting?
I was lifting in high school. So I was a U swimmer in high school and college. And I started weight training to improve my times for swim teams. And I loved the training, and the swimming training was just so brutal. 2 hours in the pool, I was losing my hair. I smelled like chlorine all the time. I'm like, okay, I love swimming. It's probably one of the best all-around exercises. It'll keep you lean. Like, I was consuming 5,000 to 8,000 calories a day and still maintaining 6% body fat. So that's how much calories you can burn swimming, because you're using almost every muscle in the body. But I love the physical nature. Adding muscle, and I know a lot of women are afraid of looking bulky or whatever, but just 2.5 pounds of muscle, that means just a few ounces everywhere, barely noticeable. That amount of muscle will burn a pound of fat every single month. So, and that's even at rest. So adding a little bit of muscle is a great way to keep your body fat in check. And most people don't think of it that way.
Yeah, and I was working out at a gym. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's called World Gym of Pacific Beach, and it's basically it is a competition gym. It's like everybody there has been in a competition or is training for one. And the truth is, you're not going to get big if you're a woman, even if you're lifting really heavy weight, unless you gain a lot of weight, because these women lift super heavy weight, and when they get on stage, they are really, most of them are really lean, so it's like, if I gain a bunch of weight, then I'm going to look more muscular because that extra fat is laying on top of my muscle.
Yeah, and that's both sides to that. It's actually, for women, even more water weight retention, because you can see water drop weight of like 5 pounds or more in a week. So that's not body fat loss, that's mostly water weight loss. So there's a big difference between that. I encourage people not to pay as much attention to scale weight and look at how their clothes fit, how their body looks, and try to focus more on that, because scale weight can fluctuate 5 pounds in a day for most people, based on what you eat, the amount of sodium intake, the amount of water you're holding. I can go in a steam room and drop 2 or 3 pounds in a few hours, just by dropping water weight.
I think that would apply to men, though. I think women are more like, 1 to 2 pounds of the water weight.
Depends on the total body weight, yeah. But
right.
It's roughly about the same percentage.
And the best types of protein, I mean, my understanding is the absolute worst is casein, like in protein powder, it's the worst is casein. And then probably the next worst is whey. And so I want to get your opinion, because, you're like, you obviously know how to build muscle. What is the best and what is the worst proteins for building muscle?
Yes, great question, because I think most people think protein is protein is protein, and it's just absolutely not true. The protein, if you look at it as a really long string of amino acids, it's called an amino acid chain. And in that protein, you can have different levels of all the different amino acids. And there are 9 essential amino acids, right, that make up proteins. So you can have different levels of each one of those amino acids. Well, in whey protein, there's a much higher amount of 2, they're called sulfur amino acids because they're bound to a sulfur molecule, they're methionine and cysteine. They're actually interchangeable. Our body can switch methionine to cysteine and back and forth again, but they're both essential amino acids. They stimulate growth. Well, normally you would think, oh, that's a good thing. But like me, I call myself a bodybuilder, but I'm actually a body maintainer. I'm at my natural limit. The only way I could gain more is by adding drugs, and I'm not going to do that. That's why I named my company Clean Machine, to encourage people not to use drugs. But so that's as big as I'm going to get, period, ever, because I've been lifting for 30 years, and it's just not going to grow more than that. But I can maintain this. I can maintain my strength. I can improve my health. I can keep my body fat low by carrying this extra muscle. But back to those proteins. The animal proteins tend to be much higher in these methionine and cysteine. Now, you can look this up or Google them. I want you to Google methionine-dependent cancers. There's cancers, about 14 of them, including breast cancer, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, the most lethal cancer of all. All of them feed on methionine. So they're methionine-dependent, means that's their food source. So when you increase the levels of methionine in your bloodstream by eating animal proteins, which are much higher in methionine, you have the potential of feeding cancer cells and stimulating their growth and replication, which can cause death. And so with plant proteins, they're generally much lower in this. And you actually can read the studies, and it says going on a vegan diet, which is lower in methionine, can actually reduce your risk for cancer and promote longevity. Right there in the studies for methionine dependency. So it's real clear that there's a big difference in what the proteins actually look like and what they do in the body. Now, why are methionine more important? A carnivorous animal will eat another animal, but they need rapid repair and healing of their bodies because they're getting a much lower total caloric intake. So that's appropriate for a carnivore animal. Herbivores eat plants. They want that lower methionine because, like humans, once we're an adult, you don't want to stimulate growth of cells heavily. Otherwise, you're going to promote cancer cell growth, aberrant growth of cells. So herbivores want a lower plant-based type of protein, and that's what humans are. Really clear through the physiology that humans are herbivores who choose to eat animals anyway, and that's where we're getting all these disease states. Brand new study came out last year that showed 54% of all Americans under the age of 35 already have an advanced disease state. By the time they're 40, they generally have 2 advanced disease states. That's heart disease, diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, hypertension. 35. We're built to last 100 years, not 35. That's 1/3 of your life simply by choosing animal proteins and putting them in your body and the detrimental effect that they have on them. I really want to encourage people to get beyond this dogma, get beyond this polarization of, oh, that's your diet, that's my. No, it's about health. It's about physiology. Do you want to put something in your mouth that causes a disease state, that leads you to a path of doctors and hospitals and insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies? Do you want to take that path? Because that's the standard path most people are on right now. Or do you want to do like I am, 60 years of age, best health of my life, no disease states, no medications, no drugs whatsoever, and living a bountiful, energetic, healthy life? The options are really clear. Please get beyond the dogma of, oh, that's vegans, that's crunchy Californians, that's, no, this is about what you should be putting in your mouth and what causes disease states.
Yeah, there's a lot of people at the gym, their main priority is how they look and their health is secondary. And then I noticed that as they do these high meat consumption diets, they get sicker and sicker. And then the thing is, I'm trying to get the word out that you can look amazing and to be beautiful, more beautiful on a vegan diet. And that's why, you know, and we want to talk about the protein, that there are better proteins to eat where you can get better results, better muscle growth, better muscle recovery with plant proteins. And then I noticed that, you know, there's some, you know, some people, you know, it's like, oh, is it soy protein? Is it pea protein? And I know you have a very interesting protein that you have in your protein powder that won an award. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's called lentine. Is that right?
That's right. The plant itself, that's the trade name for it, but the plant itself is called lemna, or water lentils, is most commonly, though, called duckweed. It's a weed that grows on freshwater ponds, lakes, streams all over the world. It's ubiquitous. And we've been trying to kill it as a weed for the last 50 years until somebody actually did an analysis on it and said, wow, this is the most nutrient dense plant we've ever discovered. We should be eating this, not killing it. And so I worked with the company and was the very first person to bring this lemna to market. We later found out that the lemna actually contained naturally occurring vitamin B12. Now, this is a supplement that a lot of vegans feel they need to take, but this plant actually has bioactive vitamin B12 in the plant. What the plant does is actually soak up the bacteria that produce vitamin B12 from the water and pull it into the root system and house them in these little bacteria condos called nodules in the root system. And there's a symbiotic relationship. The plant pulls up nutrients, the bacteria break them down and make them bioavailable for the plant to use. And in return, the plant sends down some amino acids and sugars for the bacteria to thrive on. So it's a beautiful, hey, move into my house, I'll take care of you, you take care of me, wonderful relationship. But then just recently, actually just a month ago, a brand new study came out showing that because lemna is so rich in polyphenols, these are phytonutrients that act as antioxidants, but they also help us burn fat. So they added it to those on a Mediterranean diet, and they found a 50% increase, or 2 times as much fat loss. And visceral fat, the fat that wraps around our heart and our kidneys and our liver, the fat that kills us, this is the more important fat. And 50% or twice as much fat loss than those already on a Mediterranean diet, and those on a standard American diet had 3 times as much fat loss because of the high polyphenol content that comes with the whole plant product. And that's something unique. Polyphenols don't exist in the animal kingdom. Eggs, chicken, fish do not contain polyphenols. So you're getting this weight loss, these health benefits, the support of the microbiome through the fiber and the polyphenols and the antioxidants. You're getting all those health benefits and none of the cholesterol, the #1 killer of Americans. 50% of Americans will die of heart disease caused by atherosclerosis, which is directly related to saturated fat and cholesterol in animal products. So half of Americans will be killed by the very food they're putting in their mouth. And instead, you could be putting in the plants, getting the same amount of protein, but getting all those health benefits, better weight loss, better antioxidant, better longevity, healthier skin, smooth, wrinkle-free skin. I mean, I'm 60. It's like, thank you, plants. You guys rock.
So what is your protein? You have one protein powder, right? One type, correct?
Yes.
And what does it taste like?
So it is a whole food. So it is from the whole plant. We use the whole plant. So you're getting all the chlorophyll, all the phytonutrients, all the polyphenols, the B12, all the vitamins and minerals, all in its whole state, way nature of it. Most of the plant proteins out on the market, like pea protein or rice protein or hemp, what they do is they isolate out the protein part, take out the fiber, the antioxidants, the polyphenols, the omega-3s, all the good stuff, and throw it away and just give you the protein. So that's what isolated plant proteins are. It's better than the animal proteins for sure, by far, because they're not causing disease states, but you're missing out on so much of that other good stuff, the omegas and the fiber and the prebiotics and all the cellular protective things that come with it. That's why I was so excited. Lemna is the richest source of essential amino acids of any plant ever discovered. Also, the richest nutrient dense. That means how much vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients are in the plant. Kale was considered one of the top nutrient dense foods, which is why kale rocketed to popularity. And then moringa came along, and it actually had the highest nutrient density until lemna was discovered. So I'm really proud to be the person who brought the very first lemna to the marketplace, higher in nutrient density than any other plant, higher in protein than any other real plant. And it's just exciting to see that, to bring maximal amount of health. Look, we're living stressful lives. We're living, exposed to radiation, to chemicals in our everyday. It's in our drinking water. It's in the air. We're driving in traffic all day. We need these plants with exceptional properties to help balance out and bring back that health and try to super compensate for some of these things that we're experiencing in modern life.
So to clarify, yours is not an isolated protein. It is the whole plant, correct?
That is correct. So that's all you
really
get.
Good, because we've been learning that isolated proteins could cause problems like an autoimmune reaction because it's been changed so much from its original form. So that's really good. I did not know that. So what's the best way to eat your product? Do you add like an almond milk and a banana with it, or what does it taste the best? What combo?
Yeah, I found that fruits smoothies are the best for me. So berries are low glycemic, so they don't spike your blood sugar level. Yet they're the most potent of the food groups, mostly besides spices, in antioxidants. So blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, cherries, watermelon, which is actually a berry, bananas, which is actually a berry. So you can take any of these berries, raspberries, and throw them into a smoothie with the greens. You're getting all your all the different colors, blues, reds, greens, because they all have different properties. Every color is a different polyphenol category that gives you different benefits. So combining these will combine you different benefits to that, making it rich in color. You'll get rich energy out of it, but low glycemic, so you're not spiking insulin. And then you're getting all your greens. So you're getting your greens and your fruit. Great way to start the day. That's how I start almost every day in the morning.
Yeah, and people, it's creamy, right?
Yes.
That's nice because a lot of those are really gritty. All right, so is it true that vegans have to supplement with protein powders? Or is
No,
it only?
it's not necessary, depending on what your goals are. So protein powders can be beneficial. In the case, ours is a whole food. So it's not really it's powder form, but it's like just taking any plant. Like if you took kale, put it in the oven and dried it out and then crushed it down to a powder, well, now it's still whole kale. It's still just the plant. All you've done is just made it into a powder. That's exactly what you're doing. So don't misunderstand that all powders are bad because they're isolated. No, if it's a whole food, it's a whole food. That's all there's to it. It's like,
Right.
I tell people, there are people like, oh, I don't do those herbal supplements. I said, well, did you do pasta sauce? Well, yeah, I had pasta last night. I said, it had rosemary and basil and chives in it. And he goes, yeah, and other stuff. And I said, oh, great. If I took that rosemary, basil, and chives and put it in a capsule instead of it being in a little shaker bottle, oh, then it's a supplement. No, it's exactly the same plant. It's exactly the same form. It's exactly the same powder. There's no difference. I think people are getting dogmatic about, oh, you can't do that because it's in a capsule. Yeah, there's some bad supplements out there. Find somebody who can guide you in that way, but don't be afraid of a supplement because most of them are trying to promote health.
So what percentage of your diet is carbs and what percentage is protein, and how many calories do you eat per day?
I actually don't pay attention to that too much. I eat clean, I eat whole food plants, and the plants do all the math for me, for myself.
You don't have any estimates to give us? Like, I know I've been tracking mine through an app called Chronometer, and I eat 80% carbohydrates and 10% protein, 10% fat. and people just get floored. They're like, how the heck do you eat 80% of your calories from carbs and not be a big balloon? It's like, well, because I only eat 10% from fat. Yeah.
Right. And I think the big difference is people are used to carbs being cupcakes and cookies, and no, those are isolated carbohydrates. So let's take an example of the difference between that. If you do a plant in its whole food state, it's surrounded by fiber, which regulates how all that sugar goes into the system. It's surrounded by polyphenols, which actually help the microbiome release it very slowly, help the body metabolize it. So the utilization of whole foods, like even though an apple, take an apple, it's loaded with sugar. If you looked at it just for its carbohydrates, loaded with fructose. People will say, oh, that's going to spike my blood sugar. And it does not. Why? Because there is a polyphenol in the skin of the apple. It's called fluoridin. It's actually now being reproduced as a diabetic drug. It is so effective at modulating the sugar that's in the apple that scientists are now using it. Pharmaceutical companies are now using the exact same chemical that's in that skin to modulate, to help regulate blood sugar for diabetics. That's the difference. When you remove the skin and you press it into apple juice, yeah, sure, it's near pure sugar. That's the difference. If you're eating the food in its whole food state, you're not going to have those issues. Big difference between eating isolated carbs like white sugar and whole food carbs that are surrounded by polyphenols and antioxidants and all the good stuff.
And there's been people on these, keto and paleo diets, and then they eat carbs and their blood sugar goes up. What they don't understand, it's all that extra fat that they've been consuming that is blocking the glucose from entering the cells. And also, if they have a lot of fat on their body, it's going to take a while for the glucose to level out. But you gotta start eating the healthy foods. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a heart attack or stroke. And people to get on these keto diets and they're like, oh, I get better. And then they get a heart attack or a stroke in a year. So it's like, just because you might get better in a month and some numbers go down, you got to look at all the numbers, everything. You got to look at the entire pie. All right. So do you know how many grams of protein you eat per day? Would you be able to estimate that?
Yeah, roughly between 100 and 120 grams of protein. And I modulate that based on my workouts. If I'm not working out, I'll keep it on the 80 to 90 grams because my body just doesn't need that much. So I feed my body what it needs, not what I think it needs. So if I'm low activity, I'll lower my protein. If I'm doing a big leg workout and really pushing hard, I'll add up to 150 grams of protein, all from plant sources. So it all depends on it. You should work for food.
That's really interesting because I never heard about eating more protein on days that you work out. I always thought it was you can eat more calories, and that so not the way you said to do it. I like that. That really makes a lot of sense. And so do you know how many grams of carbs you eat per day? I mean, would you be able to estimate that?
Again, that's going to fluctuate based on my activity level and my style of training. Like if I'm doing, like right now, I'm doing heavyweights, which is only 6 to 8 reps times 3 times because I'm using a much heavier weight, 100-pound dumbbells and stuff like this. So I don't do as many reps. Now, I also do what's called 5 by 20s, where I'm doing 100 reps in each exercise. So that's much lighter weight, and I'm using much more energy because I'm doing much more reps at a higher pace and lots of less rest. So my body is actually going to be consuming more higher carbohydrate utilization at that point. And I might actually even up my fat intake on that type of training too as well, because fats have almost 2.5 times the amount of calories per gram as carbs or protein do.
So you don't know, do you know the number? Like how many?
500, 600 grams of carbs a day, somewhere in there. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I eat almost 300 and I'm super tiny, 95 pounds, barely 5 feet tall.
I know, right. And when people hear, okay, so let's talk about carbs for a second. Okay, yeah. Plants make all the protein. Animals do not make protein, period. They can take proteins apart, just like we do, and reform them into different proteins. Yeah, we can do that. It's like a child taking blocks and re-putting them back together again. But they don't make the blocks. A child doesn't make the blocks, and animals do not and cannot make essential amino acids. Only plants and some bacteria can do that. Most people don't eat bacteria for a bowl of lunch for breakfast. So plants make this, but it starts out as a glucose molecule. Everything. So there's three things that make up glucose: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And that's glucose. Glucose, then you can add a nitrogen to it, and that forms protein. But fat, carbs, and fiber, and all of the rest of the stuff is all, even protein, is made from a carbohydrate molecule, a glucose molecule. So when people say, oh, I don't do carbs, I'm like, everything is carbs. Fat is carbohydrate. Protein is a carbohydrate. Glucose is a sugar, is a carbohydrate. They're all carbohydrates because they have carbon, carbohydrate, H2O, that's water, carbo, hydrogen, and oxygen. So when it all starts out as sugar, and it can all be broken back down into sugar. Protein can be broken down into glucose. Fats can be broken down into glucose. Carbs can be broken. Even fiber can be broken back down into glucose. Why? Because that's what our body runs on. That's what creates ATP in our body. It's the energy for everything. So it's all carbohydrates. We're a carbohydrate molecule ourselves. We're a carbohydrate hydrogen being. So when you look at it that way, it's all carbohydrates. So it's ridiculous to say I don't get carbohydrates. It's the foundational molecule for energy for every living being on this planet. When you burn fat, it breaks up into carbon and oxygen, which is CO2. We breathe it out. That's what we exhale. And when you exercise, what do? You breathe heavier because you're breathing out that carbon dioxide that you just broke apart the fat to create energy for. What about that extra hydrogen and O2? That turns to water. Guess what? You sweat, right? And that comes out as water, or you pee it out. So when you're breaking down fat, you're turning it into carbon dioxide that you breathe out and fat that you either sweat or pee out. So you're just breaking it down into two very simple things. That's all carbs, all protein, all fats can be broken down that way. That's why. So if you're breathing hard and you're sweating, you're burning fat. That's exact process. That's an example of what you're doing inside molecularly.
When you are you still going on stage in the future? Are you going to compete in the future?
Who knows? Maybe when I'm 70, I'll step back on stage again. But right now, I'm focusing on trying to help younger people out there represent. But I also want to look my best to show people, look, this is what you can accomplish after 38 years of eating nothing but plants and without using any drugs and be in top health. And you know what's available to people to know that you do not have to eat animal products.
What is your estimated current body fat percentage?
I normally run off season about 10% body fat, and then I can get it to 6 or 7% when I get on stage. I don't like running too low on body fat. One, I've got a thin face anyway, and it makes me look skeletal. But two, it's just not the best of health for people. Yes, it'll make things look really defined, but it's not really healthy to have that little body fat.
Have you converted any bodybuilders to vegan bodybuilders?
That's a good question. I know a lot of people have told me over the years, 38 years of talking with people about a plant-based diet, that they have changed because of me. But bodybuilders, that's a good question. I don't know of any. I'm sure maybe somebody has, but not been told.
And do you still work out at a gym nearby, or do you work out at home?
No, I work out at a gym. I love it. I love going to the gym. It's a social element for me. I always wear, like you're wearing, wear my colors so people can see that I'm vegan, and people come up to me almost every day and say, really, you're vegan? How can you look like that? And just go right into natural conversation. Most of it is usually very friendly because I'm that type of personality, and I'm there to ask them. Sometimes they'll throw a little jab or two. I just smile politely and give them good information anyway.
Right. And what do you think about ice baths for recovery?
I love it. So I wrote a book on heat shock proteins. So heat shock proteins are intracellular structures that cause the adaptation of body. So when you exercise, that is an adaptation. Your body adds more muscle because it felt the weight. So you stress the cells, and then it turns on these heat shock proteins to re-strengthen the cells. Well, when you do a cold bath, that's called cold shock proteins, similar to heat shock proteins, but they respond to that cold of shock by strengthening the immune, strengthening the cells. So I think there can be some really health benefits. I personally don't like cold water, so I'm a hot water person. So it's not my thing. I've done cold plunges before. They're amazing. It's just not my personal preference.
I've been doing the 2-minute cold showers.
Oh, okay.
And it's every, you start with the 30 seconds, you start with hot shower, and then you go cold. And then every week you adjust it. This is per Wim Hof, the Iceman. You adjust it for every, 30 more seconds. So I'm up to 2 minutes. And now it's really like a refreshing. It's really interesting. I didn't know if I could do it. And he's totally right. You can do it. And it starts here. And we're about freaking out that, oh, it's gonna be cold, but it's like, you got to convince yourself, no, it's not so bad. And it's like, oh, now I can do it. So yeah, it's just interesting. The body totally adapts to what you give it to, unless you're giving it poison, unless you're giving it whey and casein protein powders. Okay, the other thing I want to know is, give us an idea of, now you eat 4 times a day, what you eat in those 4 meals.
So typical what we call overnight oats is a good one. So you just take whole raw organic oats, non-GMO oats, put them in some water. I throw usually a couple almonds, sometimes some dates in there, and then or some walnuts if I'm just thinking omegas. And then I'll add some cinnamon to it. Cinnamon, and like many of the spices, are very high in antioxidant potential. And there you've got it. You've got a good source of carbs, fiber, you've got protein in there, and you've got a load of antioxidants to do that. So that's a typical breakfast for me. Or scrambled tofu. My wife makes a awesome scrambled tofu with lots of veggies in it too as well. Onions and mushrooms and green peppers and just the crumbled tofu in there with the spices and turmeric, and it's loaded. And then my post-workout shake, depending on my heavy workouts, if it's high intensity training, which creates what's called ROS, or radical oxygen species, the higher amounts of, the more intense your training is, the more waste products you're going to make, which can be free radical oxygens. So you want a higher antioxidant intake in your food supply. So if I'm doing heavy training or very intense training, I will do a high antioxidant. That's all those berries and the greens. And so I'll do a berries and greens smoothie. And then I'll maybe have something around beans, like hummus or lentils, or something with beans in it, rich in phytic acid, which is anti-cancer agent. And then either a big green salad, which is loaded with, chickpeas or something like that in there, and pecan seeds and pepitas and lots of stuff in there, just to get a nice hearty green salad, or a big stir fry with vegetables and some other protein source, plant-based protein source.
And I read The Plant-Based Athlete. Did you read that book?
Yes, Robert G.
And it said that athletes need a little bit more fat than people who don't exercise or don't exercise as much. So I do, about 10, sometimes 15% fat. What do you think is a good fat percentage for athletes?
Depends. If you have a predisposition for, it depends on your body weight for one, what your goals are. If you're carrying extra body fat, I'd probably keep my fat a little lower and let the body use the fat that's already there. Yeah. If you're at a leanness that you like already and you're just trying to keep up, Because what you don't want is to have your caloric energy low to the point where it's detrimental to your workouts, where you start losing strength. So one of my techniques that I use when I get them in the gym, and I push myself to failure. And if my failure is dropping in strength a little bit, I'll up my either fat or carbohydrates so that my body has more energy to do that, or maybe even slightly uptake in my protein. But I'm pretty solid at where my protein needs to be at. But I can regulate those carb intakes or stuff like that. So that's how I can get my feedback. So my two big ways are, how did I feel in my workout? And then two, what do I look like in the mirror when the morning comes? Because your body will go through its healing and process and cleansing and detoxifying at night. And after you pee, you're eliminating all this. That's where your body is at stasis level. Are you carrying extra water? Are you bags or dark circles under your eyes? That's probably an indication of too much sodium intake for the day. Are you carrying extra water? Are you, feeling energetic, or are you feeling a little groggy? If you're feeling a little groggy, well, the brain takes up almost 50% of the glucose that we intake. It's a glucose hog. So you may want to up your carbs, or even up some complex carbohydrates in there so that you're not getting that brain fog. So I do that biofeedback every morning and post-workout to say, where am I at? Am I feeling really hungry? Okay, maybe I need to eat into this a little bit. Am I feeling a little foggy? Maybe I need to up my carbohydrates.
What do you feel about an SOS-free diet for athletes?
Okay, salt, oil, and sugar. That's what SOS means. So there are definitely different doctors out there. One, it's a path that I subscribe to a degree. So I sweat a lot. So my sodium removal from my body is higher than most people. If you are a heavy sweater and you're working out regularly on a daily basis, a little bit of Himalayan salt or natural salt is probably not going to be such a big deal for you. Obviously, you want to keep that within reasonable amounts. Same with oils. The type of oil is important too. Where olive oil contains a natural antioxidant, most other plant oils that are isolated have had their antioxidants removed, which causes oxidation of the oil. So olive oil is one of the few oils that don't tend to oxidize, and it's the oxidation of the oil where the oil becomes bad. So if you take a walnut, for example, if you take it and squeeze it between your fingers, you look at your fingers and you'll see oil on your fingers. So there's oil in that. Oil is just another name for fat in its liquid state. That's all it is. So it's just a fat. Plants mostly have most of their fats in liquid state because they're unsaturated. Saturated fats are solid in a liquid state, like coconut oil. So animals generally have mostly saturated fat in them. Saturated fat is definitely more detrimental to our overall health, especially when it becomes oxidized. When you cook an animal product, you oxidize that oil, the fat that's in there, and that's where it becomes really harmful. So there's good, better, best. Obviously, if you have coronary heart disease, diabetes is a disease of fat, I would keep oils out of the diet completely. If you are using a moderate, simple amount of olive oil for flavoring in a salad, I don't see the real negative effect. And the tyrosol, that's the natural potent in there, has shown to be an anti-cancer agent and have lots of other health benefits too. So I think it's all of the devil is in the dose, as they say. It's how much you use, the type of fat that you're using, and is it oxidized or not? So all of those are concerns. And then sugar, it's best to just stay away from completely. It's pro-inflammatory. Now, that said, if you are an endurance athlete, if you are a runner, a swimmer, a biker, or if you are working out with a very high intensity, hour-plus workout, using really a lot of energy, even having a vegan donut is going to be less harmful for you because your body will immediately uptake that glucose and utilize it. Again, like you mentioned too, if you're carrying body fat, what happens is that fat will get into the cell and clog it up. And then the body will rightfully say, hey, we've got too much energy in here. We don't need any more energy. And we'll shut down the insulin receptor sites on the outside, saying our muscle cell can't handle any more energy in here. And then when the sugar comes along, it can't get into the cell. And then that sugar can become an AGE, a damaging type of molecule. But it's because you've got fat in the cell. It's not the sugar the problem. The sugar is a symptom. It's the fat that's the problem. Once you exercise and can remove that fat and defat the cell, sugar can go right in. Sugar is actually pro-insulin. It means it makes your cells even more receptive to insulin. It's fat that desensitizes insulin. And that's exactly what diabetes, type 2 diabetes is insulin insensitivity.
I even tried a ketogenic diet, but vegan keto. I mean, that's got to be the hardest thing ever. It was awful. And my insulin resistance went up exponentially. I was really shocked. Yeah, so you got to eat the carbs, but so you do eat salt, and I think all athletes need it, even if you don't sweat very much, because you're exhaling so much more and you're exercising. And so people give me grief for eating salt, but there was many times where I was at the gym and it was a hot day and I would start becoming very thirsty, and no matter how much water, I couldn't quench that thirst. So I'd go up to the counter and ask the guys for salt and just put a couple pinches of salt on my tongue, and then I was no longer thirsty because I needed that sodium. So people don't realize, you've got to cater the diet based on who you are. We can't all do the same thing. So, okay, so some salt, depending on circumstances, who you are. Oil, preferably zero, correct? And
yeah, especially if you have any or are concerned with any disease states or carrying more body fat, is definitely just leave it off. There's other things to do. With salt, the big concern, if you are Hispanic or Black, I would stay away from sodium altogether, because the risk for hypertension, high blood pressure is too great. You can get enough sodium through proper plant-based diet. You never need to add salt, but for athletes, I think there is a place for it in moderation. Salt in higher dosages can cause excessive water retention, and it can actually do a little bit of damage to the cardiovascular tract. So you want to keep it within reason.
Yeah, and it's shown to cause stomach cancer, too much sodium. So the other thing people want to know is, how often do you work out, and what kind of workouts do you do? Like full body or posing muscle groups?
All of the above. So because I did almost 2 years of research into heat shock proteins and how they work and how they get the body to adapt, one of the styles of training called periodization. So you do a period of one type of workout. Like right now I'm doing a little bit of heavy training, and that will help increase strength. So that actually is what's called hyperplasia, where it recruits new muscle cells so that you become overall stronger. Now, if I move to my 5x20s or 100 reps, well, then that's going to actually engage a different muscle fiber, like a type 1 muscle fiber, as well as type 2A and B fibers. So you're, again, changing it. So the body will adapt up to a point, and then it'll say, okay, I can handle the stress now. And that's called a plateau. Now, if you change up the workout and hit it differently, it's going to go, oh, wait a minute, I got to add that a little bit. And then you change it again, and is it going to do that? And then you change it again. And that's how you can actually do it, by keeping this. One, it keeps your workouts interesting. You're not doing the same thing every time and gets boring. It's not routine. It's like, okay, what are we training this time? Two, you can feel the difference as your body begins to adapt. Three, you're hitting different fibers and different tendons differently, so it strengthens them better overall and will help you last longer. It'll keep that longevity. If you do one type of exercise and one movement all the time, say you're just doing curls this way, it'll strengthen that muscle this way. But then if you pick up the muscle and you do it this way, oh, it's stressing that muscle the other way. Now it's really strong this way, but weak this way. And you've picked up the same weight. You think that you can do it because you can do it this way. Now you just damaged that muscle tissue, or maybe even popped a tendon because the tendon wasn't made to handle that movement. So I changed the direction of the movements. I changed the weights. I changed the reps. I changed the tempo. Just going really slow with the workout on weights. Oh my God, you will feel soreness like you've never felt before. And you can do half the weight you normally do just by slowing it down. Great study showed that the negative movement, the lowering of the weight, not just the pressing of it, was equally as effective at causing muscle gains as the ones that do. And what most people do is they do the contractive method and then just let the weight drop. Well, you're missing out on 50% of the benefit of the weight.
Right.
So those little tips and techniques is how I can maintain my physique, where I see people in here training every day and don't look anything like me and not getting the results. It's because they just don't understand the way the body works and are not working with their body to get the best results.
How many days a week do you weight train?
As many as I can. I listen to my body. If my body feels sore, I'll give it a day's rest, a couple of days rest, or even I'll take a week off if I'm feeling really sore. So I listen to my body. Look, this is the best friend. It's the one friend that you're going to stay with for your birth to death. You know, treat it like a friend. Listen to it. That's what you do with a friend. When they sit and talk with you, you listen to them. Well, your body's talking to you all the time. Listen to it like you would a dear friend. It's the one that's keeping you alive. It's the one that's allowing you all your experiences. Treat it with that respect. And once you can have that dialogue with your body, it really becomes a cool experience. I listen to my body and do what's right for it.
So let's say typically, would you do 3 days a week weight training, 5 days a week? Some people do 6. I think that's a bit extreme, but what do you like typically? How many days a week do you train?
5 to 6 days a week for me. Yeah. I do splits, so I do a body rest. So I'm actually only training a single body part like chest once a week. So when you think of it that way, I'm only training that part once a week. It's not like whole training or upper or lower where you're actually hitting it multiple times.
And then
I get the best results that way.
Yeah, and then you're not in the gym as long.
Correct. Yeah, so I can get a 30-minute workout in and still be a full-on workout.
That's good. Yeah, it's exhausting when you're trying to get everything in like 60 minutes and then you can't even finish because you're so tired. Yeah. So let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think oh yeah, the other thing is, so if somebody is interested in being a vegan competition bodybuilder, do you have any resources for them, any websites you could recommend for them?
Yes, so you can go to, put it up on the screen there, Vegan Health and Fitness Expo. And we'll have vendors there. You can see probably 50 or more vegan athletes, all natural, drug tested, and get some inspiration. Even if you can't make it out to Fort Lauderdale on April 15th, you can also see the live feed. So check that out on social media, follow us, and you can find out more information about that. Or you can just find out more information at vhfexpo.com. That's Vegan Health and Fitness Expo.com.
What if somebody is looking for a vegan bodybuilding coach? Will that information be on that site as well?
Well, at the event, we'll have some of the top coaches. We'll have judges coming from there. Corinne Sutton, who is our top 5-time pro bodybuilder. If you're a male and looking to get competition ready, he is one of the best in the business. He's put and gotten top winners on stage multiple times. He'll walk you through the whole process of getting the right food, getting the right macros, getting the right cardio, as well as getting the right fitness in. and getting the whole timing down for dieting and cutting for the stage, and to do it in a healthy and appropriate way.
Any final notes?
Well, just thank you for having me on, and I'm so passionate about, and I'm glad you are too, about showing the health benefits of this movement. And I hope if anybody has any questions, you can reach out to me. I do Facebook Lives on all the latest new research that's coming out in plant-based nutrition, health, and fitness every Thursday at 4 p.m. on Clean Machine Fit. And you can see us on Instagram too at Clean Machine Fit. You can check out our plant-based products on cleanmachineonline.com. And I hope some of you maybe can even make it out to the Expo. If not, be sure to check out the live feed. It's inspirational seeing what can be accomplished. When I turned vegan in 1985, I didn't even know the word vegan. We've come such a long way. This is such a great time. It's so much easier with all the food that's available now, choices that we didn't have back then. I was committed because I'm vegan for the animals, but you know, nutritionally, I had to search and search, and there weren't the research studies. That's why I'm so passionate about getting the research and the studies that are now available, that are now coming out in droves about all of the health benefits of plant-based foods and whole plant-based foods, supplements, and exercise physiology. It's just when you combine those three, when you get the proper nutrition, you get that base of whole food plant-based, and then you add the exercise in it, life is fun. And that's what I want to give back to people.
And you know, I've tried so many different competition diets, meat-based, and I felt so awful. My energy just plummeted. I hated the food. Who likes dry chicken? Yuck. And the limited amount of carbohydrates they would allow me to have, I was just like, I was always hungry. You know, and that's the thing. And then people get on these competition diets and they just blow up. And that's the thing. And it's like, this is so much nicer. I can eat as much, you know, as many fruit smoothies as I want. I can have like a whole bunch of, you know, quinoa. So yeah, and potatoes. Like, who doesn't love like every potato as much as you want? Like, I remember people would show me a picture, they would show on Instagram like their meals, and it was like, you know, tilapia with like 4 asparagus spears. I'm like, wait, why are you limiting the asparagus? That's the healthiest thing on your plate.
Like no calories at all to it. I took the stage, ripped, you know, 6% body fat, full on abs and everything like that. Won first place in Physique Masters. And I was eating fruit every single day in my whole prep. Every single day, eating fruit. I mean, and that's just on the no ban list for most of the traditional bodybuilders, but it's just getting your body to understand eating whole fruits, especially the low glycemic ones. You can enjoy them all the way up. Right, I was eating bananas right before going on stage.
Well, one of my friends, she did a competition, and she told me to bring her chocolate. It's like, why can't I just bring you a banana? Like, let me give you something, a healthier carbohydrate than, you know, fatty chocolate. But they, you know, then you get that fullness that they want you, you know, you don't want flat muscles on stage. It's like,
Right.
well, our healthy, you know, the food that we eat makes us look good all the time. So, yeah. Oh, and then there's one last thing is somebody wrote to me complaining that they couldn't eat beans because it gave him gas. And it's like, I'm sorry, but if you go to one of these gyms, and these are the people eating those high protein diets, you will smell their protein farts, and they are from me. So don't give me this garbage that only beans give you gas, because yeah, no. Well, thank you so much, Geoff. And I have all his website links, ways to contact him in the notes below. And if you have any questions, one of us will write to you. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day. Bye.